Everybody, my first guest this week here on the Phillip Jordan podcast is a good friend, Taylor Jones, lead writer for the Auburn Wire, part of USA Today. We're going to look at the Auburn side of the Iron Bowl for this Saturday at 2:30. And Taylor, I appreciate you coming on the show again.
Hey, anytime we get to talk with you is always good, especially after a win and what's going to be a pretty exciting week with the Iron Bowl. So, yeah, thank you for having me on.
I really think the attention and just the feel of the Iron Bowl changed in one single Saturday with Auburn's 43-41 four overtime win over Texas A&M, and then Alabama just getting blown out against Oklahoma 24-3. So the look of the game has changed in just a week.
Yeah, it has, and it's I think the spreads right now were kind of taking that into consideration too, because Alabama, a team that was very well alive for a playoff bid at with two losses, is now that's been cut down to three, and now I think it's just under two touchdowns now at 11.5. So that'll be interesting. And of course, Auburn's got motivation too. They've won two straight games. They have one game left that they need to win in order to get bowl eligibility. So, of course, they're motivated. And, of course, you don't need extra motivation to play the Alabama Crimson Tide, especially when you feel like you have a chance. So, I feel like I don't know if it'll be Jordan Hare type crazy over at Bryant Denny Stadium this weekend, but you got to expect that Auburn's going to come out ready to play, probably more ready to play in Bryant Denny Stadium than they have in quite some time.
Yeah, I actually did the numbers this morning, just kind of looking at Auburn's history there at Bryant Denny in Tuscaloosa. They haven't won there since 2010, the Canbag. That's the last time
Mm-hmm.
Auburn beat Alabama there. It's funny because before Saban, Auburn pretty much dominated the games in Tuscaloosa. That's just
Yeah,
a
I think
wild
this
thing.
is. I think this will be the first time. Yeah, first time since Saban that Auburn's had a shot at winning a game in Tuscaloosa. Because I don't think any other coach at Alabama has beaten Auburn in Tuscaloosa. So a lot of pressure on Kalen DeBoer as well. You got to love that.
Yeah, they have. Because so since that game, Alabama is averaging 46.2 points per game at Tuscaloosa. Auburn is 19 and a half. So the
Ah,
games haven't even
man.
been close in Tuscaloosa. That's
No,
been a
I mean,
wild
because like
thing.
how many 49 nothings and 36 nothings and what was the one in 18 that just it wasn't even close either. Yeah, it seems like all the really good entertaining games happen at Jordan Hare Stadium, and maybe with Nick Saban out of the way now, just like what Hugh Freeze said, he said I got to call him this week and make sure that he's not going to be in Tuscaloosa, so maybe I have a shot. So yeah, we're looking to see what the Iron Bowl looks like with Kalen DeBoer at the helm as well, because Nick Saban teams pretty much dominated the Iron Bowl while he was there in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw what Nick Saban said on game day about Jordan Hare Stadium, and A&M found out about it that
Hey,
it's
it
haunted.
was truth. Nothing nothing about that was a lie. And Auburn jumped out to a 21-0 lead, which was kind of a surprise to a lot of folks. A&M comes back, which was depending on which side of the ball, either a surprise or if you're an Auburn fan that's kind of gone through the mess that they've gone through in the last couple of years, you're like, I knew it was coming. I knew it was a matter of time they were going to blow this lead, and then you go into four overtimes and sneak one out of there. It's just, yeah, I mean, there's no denying that there's something going on within that stadium, especially when you play a night game in November. So, any way Auburn can get a win, especially at home in front of still 88,000 people that still show up to the games. It's any win you can get there in November, especially is definitely a blessing. Whether you're Auburn or another team coming in.
Yeah, you talking about the 21-0 start. I mean, and just these last 2 weeks, and I went to the Louisiana Monroe game, and it just feels like these last two games, Cam Coleman, he's coming alive at the right point. And it just seems like they are having there's more of an effort to get him the ball. And then you partner him with what Condre Lambert Smith's done the last 2 weeks. First time ever you've had two Auburn receivers both go over 100 yards in back to back weeks. It just seems like Cam Coleman is becoming more of a featured part of the offense than maybe he was before.
Yeah, I joked with another one of our writers, Brian Houch, while the game was going on. I said, "Man, I'm sure glad Auburn picked up this freshman receiver the last 2 weeks. Can you imagine where Auburn would have been if they had had him, the previous weeks or so. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, if it was a game plan thing or if it was just, I don't know what the situation was, but I mean, you kind of can't help but think, if you give Jarquez Hunter more touches, we saw that in the Texas A&M game. We also saw that in the Kentucky game, where if you give him more touches, he's going to get you the yards. He's going to set you up for the scores that you need to. Cam Coleman is going to do what he does. He's going to help out Keandre Lambert Smith. He's going to help out Malcolm Simmons. He's going to give Peyton Thorne more opportunities to breathe and get the ball downfield. Better late than never, I guess. I'm just, hoping that when Saturday comes and, if Auburn, unfortunately loses, then, it's a season where you don't go to a bowl game. You kind of wonder what if, but at the same time, if Cam Coleman does become a factor, you kind of wonder, how many games. I mean, I look at the Arkansas game, I look at the Missouri game, I look at the Oklahoma game. I mean, how many of those games could have been, that the scripts would have been reversed if Coleman and Jarquez had gotten the touches that they needed. You're looking at, and even with the California loss too, you're looking at a team going in with, probably 8-9 wins. I know the only game that I feel like Auburn really didn't have a shot at winning was the Georgia game, and they, kept it close there for a little bit. So I mean, it's one of those that I'm, glad that they're finally finding their steps, whatever the reason may be that they didn't get them beforehand. But at the same time, it just kind of makes you wonder what would happen if they had, went with that offensive game plan the entire time. How different would this Auburn team would be, and how much more important would this Iron Bowl be? Would it be a regular rivalry game, or could it be a game where the winner goes to the college football playoff? There's just a lot of questions that you have, but it's good that Cam Coleman is starting to, get his touches and really show the college football world what he can do. And it's also great for Jarquez Hunter to have a few really great games in the final few days in his Auburn uniform career.
That was so cool last week, the week before, when they played Louisiana Monroe, and he went over 1,000 yards. Because I was sitting there in the stadium, and they announced it. He was out of the games. He's on the sideline, and then you see his name up there on the big jumbotron there in Jordan Hare Stadium. Just the smile that went on his face when the Auburn crowd was acknowledging him. He finally goes over 1,000 yards. That's something that's really cool for him. And whatever happens Saturday against Alabama, just seeing him with a really, really good year after the first 2 years being behind Tank Bigsby, and then seeing what he's done this year, going over 1,000 yards, really showing everybody what he's capable of. I mean, quietly, very going to be ranked very high in the all-time Auburn rushing yardage too.
Yeah, I'm very happy for him because, in this era of college football where, you're not getting the looks that you're, looking, or you don't fit in the scheme or whatever the deal is, you transfer, try to find a better fit. Jarquez Hunter's been with Auburn this entire time. And it's not just a Auburn thing, it's a college football thing. It's very rare to see that nowadays. And
Mm-hmm.
for him to continue to, stay with this team, continue to fight through adversity, knowing that he probably could have left, last year or even 2 years ago. And for him to stay and reach that goal is pretty important. It's pretty special because everybody knows how great of a running back he is. Everybody in the SEC knows how great of a running back he is. And for him to finally, reach that goal is definitely special. And he's definitely going to go down as one of the best Auburn Tigers to ever do it, regardless of how many yards he ends up with, no matter what the results in the field were. I mean, you're definitely going to look at this era and say Jarquez Hunter was that guy because he stayed loyal to Auburn. And you could see it, pay off in the last couple of weeks where he's gotten more touches. He's gotten over 1,000 yards. And I mean, that's something that Hugh Freeze really isn't used to either. I believe that's maybe the second or third 1,000-yard rusher he's ever had, going back to his time at Ole Miss, Arkansas State, and Liberty. So that's a big testament to Hugh Freeze too, that he is staying loyal to he's staying loyal to Auburn, and you can see those efforts pay off.
Yeah, and looking back at the game, we talked about the 21-0 start. I'm like, wow, Auburn could blow this thing out. But at the same time, A&M was moving the ball during that time. You had the missed field goal. You had the interception early with Marcel Reed. So then they kind of get some momentum and they get score some points. Look, I think Hugh Freeze and offense staff called a good game Saturday, but that I don't know if it was supposed to be a fake flea flicker or it was a flea flicker, and then Jarquez just ate it. It felt like that kind of took some of Auburn's momentum away temporarily. Did you kind of see things that way with A&M moving the ball despite not being able to score?
Yeah, it kind of felt like one of those games where you had to make very minimal mistakes and you had to score on every opportunity you got, whether it was a touchdown or a field goal. You felt like you had to score, and that if there was any sort of change in that, if that was a key penalty in a big spot, or the play that you mentioned that just did not go the way that it should have, A&M was going to go in there and get momentum. I mean, they've got a very good coach and Mike Elko, great offensive coordinator, and Colin Klein. And you just kind of felt that you had to keep your mistakes to a very minimum. You couldn't goof off around this team, and for Auburn to lose that momentum and then gain it back right when they necessarily did, I feel like is a great step in the progress of just the coaching staff as well. You look at Auburn and them not really being consistent and keeping coaches, so it's kind of hard for them to kind of stay on the same page year in and year out. But I felt like that was a great sign for Auburn, something that they really haven't been able to do in the last couple of years, and even the beginning part of this year. Uh, is keeping momentum of the game, and when things don't go your way, still got to find a way to fight. And so yeah, it was props on Auburn, for doing that, because it was not a an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. And Texas A&M was 8-2 for a reason, and for
Mhm.
them to go through adversity and come through that, I mean, got to give them props. And you just kind of you can't help but wonder what's going to happen the next couple of weeks, with Alabama. Are they going to go into Bryant Denny Stadium, face that kind of adversity? How are they going to grow from that? I feel like this game is the game they needed. So, probably pretty much just confidence in themselves. Are they going to bow down to them? Are they going to say, "Hey, we're not gonna end until this game ends"? So, yeah, it was one of those games that I felt like you needed to make very minimal mistakes. And Auburn, for the most part, did. But when they did make mistakes, they found a way to come back and get that. And that's, I hate to say it, but very uncharacteristic of what Auburn's been doing
Yes.
the last several weeks. But they were able to do that. And I think that's a great sign of things to come.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When final 2 minutes they get the ball back, and I'm like, okay, this is usually where Peyton Thorne's going to probably take a couple sacks. Auburn will be like 4th and 30, and then they will have no shot. But he stepped up. That 4th and 3 run he made was huge, and you got to look at this win too for Auburn. How big it is for Hugh Freeze. I mean, he needed a win like this. He had the recruits there. Obviously, now they see the atmosphere. What is there with this Auburn team? Yeah, I saw. I can't remember. Maybe it was Malcolm Simmons or one of the other receivers, the freshman receiver, said something's being built here. So you don't feel like any of those guys are on their way out the door. So it feels like even whatever happens in the Iron Bowl, this game here could give Auburn that momentum going in all season, keep that class together, and then we could potentially see a really good team next season.
Yeah, especially when you have two guys, Deuce Knight and Jared Smith, who have been rumored to flip to Ole Miss. They were both in attendance for that game, so I think they kind of saw the atmosphere and what could be good. Also, Naeem Offord from Parker is, I saw a forecast today that he could possibly flip to Auburn too, and he was in attendance. He was, among those that rushed the field on Saturday. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that was important, and I also feel like Ole Miss losing to Florida. And I don't know, if that speaks to coaching or what the deal is, but you got to think that with all three of those guys being on campus and seeing all of that, you can't help but think, in the next week or so when early signing day starts, that we're going to get those signatures, and Auburn's going to keep going up the way that they do. And I think it also helped too that Cam Coleman was able to do what he did, and say, hey, it doesn't matter how young you are, you're going to get a shot here. Jay Crawford on the defense has been killing it so far as well. Demarcus Riddick had a really good game too, and
He
those are all
did.
three freshmen. So yeah, I feel like that was really good for Hugh Freeze. I feel like that was really good for Auburn recruiting, and the next 2 weeks are going to be key to see if we can keep those top two guys, Deuce Knight and Jared Smith out of Thompson. And of course, if Naeem Offer decides that he wants to flip as well, we would definitely take that for sure.
And now you kind of just look at the Iron Bowl, and we touched on it a little bit here. And it's just you're going to Tuscaloosa. Of course, again, we touched on how Auburn has struggled, but Nick Saban's not on the sideline anymore. I kind of look at it for the Auburn side of things. Marcel Reed did have some success running as the quarterback position. We know Jalen Milroe. That's a big part of this offense. And they're a big play offense, Alabama. They're not one normally you see go 10, 15 plays. It's usually a big play. Ryan Williams, receiver, or one of the running backs. When you look at Auburn, what are going to be some of the keys for them to pull off another upset and go into Tuscaloosa and end that streak there at that stadium?
I feel like it's got to be key for the defense to break through the offensive line and really mess with Jalen Milroe's head, because I was looking back at some film earlier today, just looking at what Jalen Milroe did. And it just seemed like Milroe is he doesn't do quite as well when he's got guys in his face. And I know we've got Jalen McLeod, we've got Keldrick Falk. We mentioned Marcus Riddick in that last question, but I think if you find a way to get through the offensive line and mess with Jalen Milroe, that's going to be the key guy right there. Because if Jalen Milroe's not doing what he does, Ryan Williams can't get the ball. The running backs aren't going to be able to, do what they do either, because, you go after the leader, and things are not going to go well for Alabama defensively. Looking at Alabama's defense and looking at Auburn's offense, I think you've got to find a way to just remain consistent. You've got two really good targets that we've seen the last couple of weeks. Try to find a way to get them the ball, and if they are covered up, if Cam Coleman's double covered and he can't do as much, try to find a way to get Perry Thompson involved. Try to find a way to get KLS, to do what he does. You've got Malcolm Simmons as well. So just try to find ways to. I figure, this way you got to worry about the what if, because you're not going to be able to run the ball as well as you did at Alabama than you were against ULM. Same thing. You're probably not going to be able to pass the ball as well as you did against Texas A&M too. And I mean, chances are you might. You never know, but the game plan has got to be, what's plan B? Because, you've got two really good guys that are on offense. It proves that they can make things happen. But as good of a defense as Alabama is, they're not going to allow you to run over them like that. So you got to find a way to get more playmakers involved. So, it's going to be, probably one of those games where you look more to Malcolm Simmons or Perry Thompson. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you just got to get in Jalen Milroe's head. I think that's got to be key for Alabama. They're not going to be as successful if Jalen Milroe doesn't have enough time to make a steady decision.
Yeah, of course, Peyton Thorne. This is on him. The mistakes. Doesn't have to win the game for Auburn, but he cannot lose it. So, and he's been doing that pretty well second half of the year, especially these last 2 weeks against Monroe and then against A&M. I know he had that one interception against A&M, but in his running ability, I mean, he has that when the things break down, like we saw again, 4th and 3, he made a big run. So we'll see what Peyton Thorne is. We'll see what he can do in this game. But Taylor, it's been fun talking this Auburn Tigers. We'll let you go real quick. Not a prediction, but you kind of gave how Auburn could win the keys there. I'm just going to lay it out like this: we wake up Sunday morning and Auburn's won the Iron Bowl. What is one thing you think happened?
They find a way to win the passing battle, because you look at the two main guys. You've got the freshman Cam Coleman for Auburn, and you've got Ryan Williams, who's 17 years old. Don't know if you or any of your audience knows that, but he's only 17 years old.
Man, I usually make that joke. I'm glad somebody else come in here and made it.
But yeah, those are going to be the two guys to look for. I feel like whoever has the best game, that's going to be whoever wins. Is it going to be Cam Coleman or Ryan Williams? I'm going to say if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, then it was Cam Coleman did Cam Coleman things and made plays happen when they needed to.
All right, it's going to be fun. This has been fun, Taylor, having you on to preview the Iron Bowl and recap Auburn's win over Texas A&M. But if the listeners and viewers want to check it out, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can check us out at auburnwire.usa today.com. We're, of course, going to have Iron Bowl coverage all week. Auburn basketball is also playing in the Maui Invitational. We've got predictions, betting odds, pretty much an entire Maui preview of players to look for. What are some things that Auburn needs to do in order to get out of Maui with a win? So for your Iron Bowl news, for your Maui Invitational news, check us out at auburnwire.usatoday.com. You can also check us out on Twitter, X, at the Auburn Wire. You can also check us out on Facebook as well. Just search Auburn Wire, and all the news that we have posted will be on those two social media sites.
All right, everybody. If you want to check out more Auburn stuff, go check out Taylor and the Auburn Wire. And Taylor, again, appreciate the time, and I look forward when we do this again sometime down the road.
Hey, we appreciate you too.